All right. Hello, and welcome to my WPF Season 7 draft recap. Now, I'm going to just be going through pretty much what I drafted, what I feel about what I drafted, and how kind of the team works together, and maybe go through some of my thought process about, what I was thinking while I was drafting these ones, and maybe give some context to some of the picks as to like what was available, what's not available, and my honest assessments maybe at the end. So without further ado, let's go ahead and see what we got here, and I hope you enjoy the ride. Draft was definitely wild for me, and I'll go into some parts as they come. But so I had the third overall pick, right? And that translated into getting we got Mega Caesar, right? And Mega Caesar is a mon that with the third pick and what I wanted to pair with it, I felt pretty comfortable taking. Now, I had the third overall pick. There are 16 teams in this league in the Gyarados, the upper division. And looking at this team and looking at the mons available in Tier 1, Mega Caesar is a Mega Tier 1, which means I don't get any extra free points to work with. And I think Volcanion, spoiler alert, is a very good Pokemon to pair with Mega Caesar as it covers its weaknesses perfectly. Quad weak to fire paired with a quad resist to fire. And that's Caesar's only weakness. And offensively speaking, the things that Volcanion can hit, Caesar doesn't really cover as much, but it doesn't get resisted by it. Like Volcanion struggles to hit waters. It can maybe do some things against it because it doesn't get hit by water, so it's not the worst thing in the world, and it got body press this generation, which can be very interesting to play with. But Mega Caesar, right? It's got the reason I was comfortable taking it is because I felt very comfortable. So I believe if I had the third pick, this is like around pick 28 or so. I felt very comfortable that Volcanion would fall to me, and as a result, I felt comfortable picking Caesar, right? I usually go into drafts not really having a plan, seeing what mons fall to me, and then off of the first 2 or 3 picks, I will go ahead and devise a strategy and maybe think about it some from there, right? Now, I felt pretty confident Mega Caesar was going to fall to me at 3, but just in case, if it didn't, I would have definitely pivoted. I think the first 2 picks were Tornadus T and I don't remember, but I know that I wasn't really going to use either of those mons. Third pick's a weird pick because like you feel like you might have to reach for something you want, because you know that something that you may want, especially if it's really strong, might not come back to you. Probably won't come back to you. So I figured, okay, Mega Caesar was cool, right? So good points about Mega Caesar: insane physical bulk. If you spec into it, very good special bulk. If you go like max FDF. Self-recovery and roost, which is insane. Technician bullet punch, insane. Stab U-turn, very, very good for pivoting, and with a speed tier of I believe 70, it can function as both a faster U-turn if I really want to go that route, or a slower U-turner, which is very good for momentum. Caesar also gets access to pretty decent coverage moves like Superpower. I'm blanking at the moment, but it definitely has some good options. And just the raw power, I believe it's like 140 attack and 150 defense. Like, it's a force to be reckoned with. I think that with the ability to play both offensively and defensively, it's a very good start for my team. And it allows me to play many different play styles, like offensively, defensively, depending on the matchup and depending on what I feel like is strong going for my team going forward, depending on what I draft. Now, that being said, I'm like, okay, Caesar's quad weak to fire. How do we deal with that? How do we pair it with something that's good? Ideally special to cover for bulky special attacker, to cover for bulky physical attacker. And I settled on Volcanion, right? So round 2, pick number 14, which is like pick 27, 28, I think, overall. I don't remember. Math is hard, but Volcanion, what it does is it provides a very good partner to Mega Caesar, like I said earlier. It gives switch-ins into fire moves, quad resistant to fire, quad resistant to ice, and immunity to water with water absorb, which is going to be very good for the match for the week after we deal with Dracovish. Volcanion also has access to a very good special move pool with Steam Eruption, which is basically just Superior Scald with 95% accuracy as its only downside. Stab, Water, Fire hits a lot, because the things that Water hits, Fire covers pretty dang well, like Rock, Grass. I think that Water doesn't hit, I should say. So Volcanion is going to be a force to be reckoned with for sure, and it gets some interesting new toys in Gen 8 with Body Press. I think it also gets like Heavy Slam, Heat Crash, and it has like a workable physical attack stat too. I think it's like 110 compared to like 130, and then 120 defense, and then like 90 something special defense. It's pretty good. It's bulky. The only bad thing about it is its speed. Its HP I think is also like 70 or 80, which isn't great. But it doesn't need to be extremely defensive. Now, if Volcanion got reliable recovery, this thing would be absolutely perfect, but it also would be an insane Pokemon. So, and somebody probably would have nabbed it before I did. I just think that Volcanion covers super well what Caesar wants to do, and right now with these two Pokemon, what I have is I have a very bulky but still offensively threatening. It's not like passive things that just sit there and get set up on or anything. I have two Pokemon that can eat hits for days, right? Pair well type-wise with each other and dish out extreme damage. And I think it's a very good foundation for me going forward. You could argue that like maybe like a water type that can self-heal, like an Alomomola or like Starmie would have even been pretty good. Just maybe not like, because Starmie with Flip Turn was actually really good in my opinion, but like a bulkier water type or a water type that can be bulky that can self-recover might be better. But I think the quad resist to fire plus the damage output that it gets really solidified my desire to pick Volcanion, and I also think it's really interesting, and I'm excited to use it because it has a pretty varied moveset, all things considered. So then I thought about these two, and I'm like, okay, so Mega Caesar and Volcanion. What do I not resist? Rock, Ground, and Electric. Or what don't I resist that hits me super effectively? Rock, Ground, Electric. So I thought to myself, what is something that can resist all three of those types? Resist or immunity. And my two options, at least to my knowledge that I thought about, were Flygon and Claydol. So this might be one of the most questioned picks in the draft, but I went with Flygon in round 3 as my third pick. Now, would it have come back to me if I waited till round 4? Probably, right? Probably. But this thing is so integral to what I wanted to do, I didn't want to risk the chance of it being taken, because I know there's got to be somebody out there that's like, oh my god, looks at Flygon's move pool, hardcore Gen 3 player, and is like, I want this thing, I'm grabbing it, right? Because its move pool is actually insane. It gets priority, it gets roost, it gets, hazards, it gets hazard removal, it gets just... I don't actually know if it gets hazards, but it probably does. It gets everything. It has special attacks up the wazoo, physical attacks all over the place. It's wild. Like, you can run Throat Spray Broom Burst, you can run, like, anything, really. Like, this thing is extremely flexible and can serve as very good glue while also covering the three resists and immunities I wanted. Levitate makes it immune to Earthquake and ground type moves, so unless someone facing against Haxorus, which I don't want to really be in against anyways, or I don't want to switch in against it. I definitely want to be in against it because I outspeed it naturally. And could definitely threaten it with like a Draco or something. Electric I'm completely immune to, and I think Regieleki is like in my conference, so like Flygon's free against that. I mean, I didn't really consider like counter-picking division opponents till later. Which is going to actually come up later because it's really important, because I actually had both Garchomp and Mega Garchomp land in my division. So Flygon, in hindsight, if I knew that both Garchomps were going to be in my division, I would have maybe picked up Latias? Or, no, not Latias. Latios. No, yeah, I would have picked up Latios, because Latias was picked first, actually, for like the Bulk and Wish support that Latios does not have, but... I looked at Latios and I'm like, okay, I naturally outspeed the Garchomps, right? I can run Scarf against regular Garchomp, or just run Soldew against Mega Garchomp and hit it with Ice Beam or Draco, and it like dies, right? So, and Latios has a very very move pool, which Flygon does as well. But the resistance to Rock, I might have been overthinking it, but I really really wanted it. And I think people are going to be sleeping a lot on Flygon's defensive capability on my team. Just come in and eat a hit that Volcanion doesn't want to take to support Mega Caesar, and just roost it up, and then you turn out. Like, I think people are hard sleeping on that. I'm not saying I'm going to run Flygon defensively every week. It, like, depends. But, like, just watch out for Flygon. I think it's going to surprise some people this season. I really do. I don't think in a vacuum Flygon is good. I think it's a bit too middling. It's like a jack of all trades that tries hard to be good at something, but it's like mediocre at everything, which is essentially what a jack of all trades is. But Flygon just feels a bit lackluster, but I think in a draft setting, that versatility bumps it up a lot. And I think that with its defensive presence that I think people are underestimating, like 80 across the board isn't fantastic, but don't sleep on that. 80 across the board with reliable recovery is definitely usable. With a good typing too, right? Dragon Ground with Levitate, okay, you're weak to Ice, but you're not singing on Ice types anyways. So, like, you only have to worry about Dragons and Fairies, right? Like, this thing is going to be able to switch and eat hits. It's, like, it can kind of fulfill, like, a role kind of similar to Salamence without Intimidate, which makes it sound worse, I know. But I think you're going to see this surprise some people. Now, looking at this core I have, I'm like, beautiful, right? I'm thinking about it. I have a very good start to a Fairy Dragon Steel core, and I also have Volcanion, which can cover both the water and fire part in the fire, water, grass core. Now I'm looking at it, and I'm missing Fairy from the Fairy Dragon Steel and Grass from the Fire, Water, Grass. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, Whimsicott can provide very good support. And speaking of Whimsicott can provide very good support for my team. Tailwind is going to be very helpful in certain matchups. Another U-turner, like my team pivots up the wazoo, and I think people are underestimating that as well. Self-recovery again, so it can be a switch-in. Like, against certain teams, Subseed and Protect, Whimsicott literally destroys certain teams, and I think people are hard sleeping on Whimsicott, like, as that set. Like, you can prep for it all you want. If you don't have a dark type, if you don't have a dark type or an infiltrator, you kind of lose. But even if you do have a dark type, you just get moonblasted to hell. So, like, yeah, I think Whimsicott is insane. Hell, like, against Sun teams, because there's a Mega Charizard Y in my division, I'm saying this in retrospect because I didn't draft it with the intention of abusing other people's Sun. I can run a Chlorophyll set, you know? Like, Whimsicott's very versatile. And I'm basically, what this pick really did, besides the support that it gives my team, it compresses the two cores that I mentioned earlier, the Fairy Dragon Steel and the Fire, Water, Grass, into 4 Pokemon, which opens up so many more possibilities. So those cores individually get weaker, right? My Fairy Dragon Steel core is weaker because it's only 2 Pokemon, right? Mega Caesar and Whimsicott. When, like, you may not even want to call that a core, and I understand that. But in my opinion, like, I basically trade a weaker core of Pokemon for 2 extra slots to further diversify my team, and I think that's insanely valuable because I could pick more threats, right? Instead of having like you know, like a top-ish heavy, like, okay, here are clear cores that are going to come every week, right? I now have 4 Pokemon that may not even come every week, right? Because I got some good stuff, in my opinion, later, and we'll get to there when we come. But I think in draft, versatility is king. And, you know, in the past, people are like, how do you get to finals with, like, this team, it's really garbage, or, like, you know, like, oh, like, this team isn't very good. You know, my teams are constantly rated, like, not very good, but they outperform expectations. And I think you can lend that to both me just seeing Pokemon so differently compared to, like, the majority of people, I feel like. I value certain things that other people don't care about, and I don't care about other things that certain people value to the moon and back. So I think it's interesting, that dichotomy, because then it shows how deep Pokemon actually is. There's so many different strategies and so many different ways that you can look at it that makes a team successful. So I think Whimsicott's going to provide a lot for this team, and it provides role compression, it provides support, and at this point in the draft, right, I had my core. I had my top four Pokemon I drafted that I was very happy with how they gelled together. And then I was at a crossroads, right? Where do I go from here? I still needed to draft a tier 2. I already drafted both of my tier 3s in Flygon and Whimsicott. So I needed to start thinking about where my free picks need to go into. And we have 4 free picks. And 400 points. And tier 3s are 100. And tier 1s are 180. So if I picked a tier 1, I would have to pick tier 5s. And I thought to myself, I've done that in the past. I stacked up on tier 1s. I drafted a tier 1 Mega, which means that I don't get extra points to work with. So I made the decision to try and be as balanced across the board as possible. And I think that, sure, it sacrifices top-heavy power, but it means that people have to respect every single Pokemon on my roster. Because every single one of them can contribute. There's not going to be a single deadweight mon on this roster. And I think that's insanely valuable. Because it forces people to try... Because like somebody might be prepping for my team. And they'll be like, okay, I have 6 Pokemon slots, but I feel like I need more to counter everything that this man has to offer. And I think that's extremely valuable. So with my next couple picks, I thought about my championship run in UPL, and I'm like, okay, I remember having, like a very bulky, like 70-ish speed around core, and I remember having a couple mons to just come in and click buttons for free. Like, I had Komodo Heatran, and then I had Mega Mawile and Staraptor, right? So... specifically looking at a faster mon because of my team, it's kind of slowish right now. I mean, Flygon and Whimsicott definitely are fast compared to Mega Caesar and Volcanion, but I really wanted a fast, like, pure attacker on the physical side and a fast pure attacker on the special side. And I wanted to be able to hit fire types and water types, the things that threaten Mega Caesar. Well, okay, fire is the most threatening to my team at this point, being I do have 2 resists, but I also have 2 weaknesses to key Pokemon. And water, because Whimsicott's my only super effective against it right now, and my team, bulky waters can kind of stall out my team a little bit, especially because they carry Ice Beam, which hits 2 of my Pokemon for super effective at the moment. So, I'm thinking about that. I'm like, okay, so what can I pick? And I just want something that's fast, hits hard, kind of clicks buttons, like how Staraptor, clicks buttons with Double Edge, Reckless, Double Edge, or Brave Bird, Reckless, and then Close Combat. Like, that is immaculate coverage, like, not gonna lie, because, like, okay, Stab normal, right? Resist by Ghost. If you think a Ghost type is switching in, Brave Bird. If you think a Rock or Steel type is switching in, Close Combat. Like, I wanted just something like that. And I settled on... Joke's on me, I settled that the round after. So, sorry about that, that's a little funny. But, okay, so Ditto is a Pokemon I think is insane. It was tier 4 last season, I drafted it. It's tier 3 this season, but I figured if I didn't pick it here, I would have to wait until the entire draft basically went and came back to me. Because this was the 3rd pick of the round, and in the snake format, you have to wait for everybody to pick that picks after you, and then they go back. So I would have had to wait, like, 26 picks, I think? No. Yes. Because pick 3 and then 13 picks to get the number 16. And then 13 more to get back to me, I think. Something like that. Like 26. Math is hard. I'll say that again. But, so I didn't think Ditto would come back to me. And I think Ditto forces so much pressure in team prep. Heavily discourages setup mons. And for a bulky core like mine that can self-heal, that's insane. Because you're going to have to just raw brute force your way through me, and I don't think that's possible easily. It's not easily possible. And you have to respect Ditto, because if you set up on me, I bring Ditto in, and what are you going to do about it, right? So I think that's going to be very helpful, and I didn't think it would make it back to me, and this was kind of like a panic pick, because I'm like, I think Ditto is like really good, even in tier 3, because if you use it properly, it's always going to outperform its value, because you're copying something that's better than a tier 3, right? Assuming Ditto copies the most average things across the season, it's still returning net neutral value, which is still a positive in my book, right? As long as it's not providing net negative value. So Ditto's going to be insane. And Ditto kind of just glues everything together. Like, okay, I look at this opponent's team. I need a Landorus check. I bring Ditto because Landorus is its own check without hidden power. And then if he wants to U-turn on the switch, he's U-turning at -1 and a resist, and then I U-turn out the next turn. So like whatever, right? Just things like that. Ditto's really helpful for it. But now I'm like, okay, I want mons that click buttons. I decided on Lycanroc Dusk, my first tier 2 pick, and my only, I believe, as the 6th pick of mine. And Lycanroc Dusk gets Tough Claws, which is dummy insane. Because we know strong, like it's not as good as Strong Jaws because there's a 1.3 boost instead of a 1.5 time, but it applies to every contact move. So close combat, stab Accelerock, play rough, outrage even for the guard chomps. And yes, I grafted it partly because outrage guarantees Oko in play rough doesn't, which is funny, but we'll see. But I think that Lycanroc Dusk just clicks buttons. That could be Life Orb, that could be Choice Band, that could be even Choice Scarf in some situations, like hell, Expert Belt, Muscle Band. Like, I think, and it's also a rock setter. I think it's my first rock setter, which is also very good. So I can run like Sash Endeavor. Like, there's so many things I can do with this mon. It's fast, it hits hard. I click buttons, I'm happy. And more importantly, it's another fire resist. It hits stab fire super effectively. While also nipping flying types in the wings, clip their wings a bit, and we have something that can help deal with a negative matchup to Whimsicott and flying. Otherwise, I did not resist to yet. Now, Lycanroc isn't a defensive Pokemon by any means, but having something that can switch into a flying move like once, maybe twice, depending on if it's like a weak Air Slash or something from like a Mandibuzz. Well, if it's a weak Air Slash from a Mandibuzz, it can switch in a lot more than twice. But you get my point, right? Like, this thing comes in, clicks buttons, and wins. Hopefully. But I think it's really good. So that's the physical side covered, and I'm like, okay. I have physical covered. Now what's special? And I realized there's a third tier, my 4th tier 3 pick and my 2nd tier 3 free pick. I wanted to be able to hit water super effectively, and we come with Xurkitree, right? Xurkitree has like base 171 special attack, insane, base 81 speed, so it barely outspeeds base 80s. Tailwind support with Whimsicott is going to be good for it. I could always just slap a Scarf on it. Like, this thing, you have to respect ground type switching into it because I can always click Energy Ball. Against Dazzling Gleam for the guard chomps. Beast Boost can, if I get the ground types out on your team, which honestly, like, ground types and Volt Absorbers on your team, right? Like, I have Volcanion for ground types, depending on the ground type. I have Flygon for ground type. I have Flygon also for electric Volt Absorbers, right? The only Volt Absorber that I think threatens me in any capacity is, like, Lantern with Ice Beam. I don't recall it. No, it's not even in the league because we're Galar, right? So, like, yeah, I have options to clear the way for Xurkitree as a win con, which is insane for a 7th round pick, I think. Like, Xurkitree is going to click buttons and do insane damage, and that's all I care about, right? And it gets some interesting support options like Hypnosis, Rip Tail Glow, though. But it gets some interesting support options that I can definitely run and surprise some people a couple weeks. But that covers my physical and special hard-hitting dealers, right? And at this point, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, like, I have 7 picks in the bag. There's 4 more. I've used 2 of my free picks. I still need to pick a tier 4 and a tier 5. And I've locked myself into picking 2 more tier 3s, right, with my free picks because of the way the point system works. And I'm looking at what I don't have. I don't have a Psychic type yet, which I think is going to be valuable because Psychic covers a lot for my team. I get a Psychic Resist, which I only have in Caesar, believe it or not. Fighting Resist, which is also going to be helpful. So yeah, I feel like a Psychic type would have been really good, and then I'm like, okay, like, my team is also kind of ground weak. Still, especially with the addition of Xurkitree, even though I have Flygon and Whimsicott, 2 immunitized, and immunitized is not even a word, but you know what I mean. To grant an immunity and to resist, respectively, ground type moves. I wanted to, because ground type moves are also like everything in their mother gets earthquake. It is such a widespread move, and now earth power is too, and now things get scorching sands. Disclaimer: I think scorching sands is a crappy move. People shouldn't run it for the damage. You should only run it for the burn chance on defensive mons, and don't quote me on that. The coverage it gives is usually worse than damage stab, neutral stab would hit for anyways. But yeah, so I am thinking to myself, right, like, another ground, a couple ways to deal with the ground, and one of the most common attacking types in the game would help. So my focus goes to Mesprit with Levitate as my answer. Now, some people might be asking, Azelf was picked, but why not Yuxi, right? Yuxi's more defensive, it will fit your team also defensive mon, blah, 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 blah. I think just using Mesprit is more splashable, because it has workable offenses, right? It gets interesting moves, knock off, a bunch of special coverage. I think it gets like Yawn, Heal Bell. It's kind of like, this is a stretch, but it's like Mew Light, right? Like, it obviously doesn't get nearly the amount of like diversity that Mew gets, but like, this thing gets a lot of options, and I could do anything it wants. And the speed tier being significant, I think it's like higher than Yuxi by like a decent margin. Maybe not. But it sacrifices like some bulk for like HP or for offense, but like, it's still very bulky. Like, it can't self-heal itself, but neither can Yuxi, right? So like, it's a very decent option. And I'm thinking like it could take a Garchomp, and this is about around the point of the draft where I noticed like, oh, there's both Garchomps in my division, there's 2 weather teams, there's 2 terrain setters. So I tried to come up with ways to maybe mitigate some of that. And Mesprit can take a Garchomp hit, fire back with Ice Beam, right? Like, depending on the set, it could probably take a couple Mesprit hits. And it's just a good pivot into certain things, right? I think it gets Teleport, maybe? I don't remember. Like, there's just a lot of things it can do, and it's basically kind of just a splashable Gloomon, just kind of like Flygon that I can use in any given situation, which I think is insane. So then I'm like, okay, so I'm looking at the tier 3s. I see stuff like Decidueye. I don't have a Ghost type yet. I'm looking at Decidueye. I'm looking at, like, there's some. I wanted like some supporty. I wanted another supporty mon, but that could still do damage and can be useful outside of a support role, kind of like Mesprit. How I view Mesprit at least, and I settled on Crobat. Now, Crobat is insane. Base 130 speed. It got a buff to its special attack in like Gen 7, I think, so it has like a workable special move pool. It gets Brave Bird now, which helps it on the special physical side. Super Fang is extremely underrated for this mon, I think. It can serve as a decent pivot once again, coming in, roosting. If you haven't noticed the theme, I hate Wish, because like, I think Wish is a bit overrated, because you have to position yourself with Wish to be able to live a hit so that the recipient of Wish can actually benefit from its effects, and that's not always possible. Sometimes you have to sacrifice a lot of board momentum to put yourself in a position to eat a hit to get the Wish, and good players, I feel like, will chip you out of those situations, right? So I place a significantly strong emphasis on being able to self-heal. And Crobat's another one of those mons that can do that. With the advent of heavy-duty boots, it can... I think boots are also overrated, but it's an option that Crobat can have to come in and not take 25% of its health every time it comes in, and just be a very good chipper. This gives me a fast U-turn option, so if I predict switches and I don't want a Super Fang, or if I don't bring Super Fang, like U-turn for momentum is really good. Obviously can spread status with Toxics, and just general fast chip. I think this is a force to be reckoned with, a mon to be reckoned with. I think it's also a backup Tailwind setter, a hazard removal, like mean look even. I could do some trapping stuff. This is a good Pokemon. And it just kind of fit what I want to do. It also gave me a poison type and a flying type, which I previously did not have despite all the ground immunities. So having stab flying and stab poison is going to be very good, especially with like Fairy is what I think the strongest type in the game. I'm sure I'm not alone in that. I think you can make a case for Steel. You can make a case for Dragon. You can make a case for maybe water, like maybe water, but yeah, there's some good there's some good mons. Sorry, let me go back. Um, yeah, so with the 10th pick, so I have all my free picks, right? And I have all my tier threes, and I'm still needing a tier 4 and a tier 5. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, you know what's actually really good for my team? And I'm sure 99% of people are going to be laughing at this, but Regigigas is a force to be reckoned with. I don't care about slow start. I really don't, okay? Let me just name the good points the thing has. Even with slow start, you're talking about base 80 attack, right? And base 50 speed, which isn't terrible. But you know what still exists even through slow start? 110 HP, 110 defense, 110 special defense. The thing's bulk is actually stupid. And if you think you can set up on Regigigas, you can't, because Ditto's gonna be in the back waiting to steal your stuff, right? So people have to respect this thing. They really do. And you might be laughing at first glance, but very good support options. Knock off, Thunderwave, substitute power punch. It finally gets protect. So if I want to do like the basic, like I'm gonna sit here, sub protect, like sub protect, right? Like now that it gets access to protect, which it didn't before prior to Gen 8, that sets a lot better. It also gets body press this gen too, which is a very interesting tool for it. Once again, the base 110 defense. I think it's still affected by slow start because it's still a physical attack, but like maybe not. I'll have to look into that. But like even if it is affected, but like even if it is affected by slow start, I still think this is an insane tier 5 mon. Good move pool, good supporting options, underrated use inside of slow start. And with Ditto in the back, people have to respect it. Like it's not set up fodder. So I think alongside Flygon, Regigigas is going to surprise some people this season, and you're going to have to look out for it. So that being said, that's my tier 5, and my last pick is a tier 4. Now there are a couple types I'm still lacking. Right? I don't have a fighting type. I don't have a ghost type. I only have one fairy type. I only have one steel type. Not the worst thing in the world, but some people prefer to have 2 of those. I don't really care. I think the more type diversity, the better. The more type and role diversity, the better, right? So, and I know that might seem contradictory because I've said a lot about how my mons are splashable, and a lot of my mons are splashable, a lot of my mons are versatile, can be offensive, defensive. But that's the exact point, right? The amount of unpredictability my team lends itself to is going to make it very strong in draft, because I could bring anything. I could bring offensive Crobat, I could bring defensive Crobat, and people are going to respect both while they're prepping, and if they guess the wrong one, they're screwed. And if they try to prep for the wrong one, or if they try to prep for both, they're going to be hamstrung in other areas, right? So with my last pick, I decided to go for a ghost type, and it's Dusknoir. Now, my options were Dusknoir and Sableye. Sableye would have covered me as a dark type. It has some overlap with Whimsicott as a prankster user. It's not the bulkiest thing in the world, but it gets prankster recover, which I think is insane and really good. Like, we saw how Talonflame did with that. Like, prankster roost is dumb. And on a mon that can actually put offensive presence, like Sableye can't do that, but it's still really good because of prankster recover, right? So like, knockoff, Will-O-Wisp, good supporting options. It kind of felt kind of overlapping with Whimsicott. I think the saving grace for it was prankster recover and dark typing, which I didn't have. But Dusknoir, I think, just kind of fit my team better. It's a bit slower, so it helps me in Trick Room matchups. There's a Trick Room team in my division, like hard Trick Room. Like dude has Galastria, Hatterene, like some other stuff. He has like 3 setters, or that team has 3 setters. Alolan Executor, which can be scary under Trick Room because it hits hard with Leaf Storm and Draco Meteor. Like, yeah, Galastria is going to be really interesting too. But like, I just wanted something that was bulky. Pain Split's interesting, so it can kind of pseudo self recover, sort of. With Poltergeist and based on 100 attack, it's respectable offensively, so it's not just a sitting duck like Dusclops would be. and it still gets access to support moves like Will-O-Wisp, and while they're not going to be Prankstered, at least like the Urshifus it can hit the Urshifus if they're locked if they're choiced in like close combat, or hit something on the switch. Destiny Bond is an interesting move. I really like it. I think it's really good. Forces a lot of pressure, even on a slower mon. Yeah, it just kind of felt like the best thing in tier 4 that I could pick. I was debating Ninetales to give myself some weather control against weather teams, but that would be me using Ninetales for like the bajillionth time in a row. Don't get me wrong, I love Ninetales. Like Specs, Fire Blast, and Sun is dumb. People really underestimate the amount of damage Ninetales does. I just felt it kind of worked against my team a bit. With Volcania's water type moves not doing as much damage, and Mega Caesar getting bopped even harder with fire moves. It would have given me interesting synergy with Chlorophyll when Scott. But yeah, the other options I would consider were like Meltank if I didn't go Regigigas. Licky Licky is a Wish Passer, although I wasn't super solid if I didn't go Regigigas. But yeah, that about covers the team though. So in short, we've got our big three here with Mega Caesar, Volcanion, and Flygon. Got Ditto to kind of glue it up. Whimsicott is a very good support option to cover and complete the Fairy Dragon Steel and Fire Water Grass cores with by itself. And we have two very hard hitters that people need to respect every week in Lycanroc Dusk and Xurkitree. Then we've got a very good pair of support mons in Mesprit and Crobat. And then, who can also be very offensive, by the way. And then we've got Regigigas, who people are going to hard sleep on. It's going to take some names. Unless if you watch this video, then you're going to be prepared for it. And finally, Dusknoir. So I hope, if you've made it to the end, thank you, right? I'm glad you watched it. I'm assuming if you watched the end, I'm glad that means you enjoyed it, and I'm very happy that you did. Please feel free to give, feedback in the comment section. Hit me up in the Discord if you have any questions about, or here in the comment section if you have any questions about maybe some things I have failed to explain properly, or some things that you maybe disagree with. I'm very happy to hear about them and talk about maybe what you think, and just talking Pokemon's fun. So just hit me up. And yeah, just give me your feedback. Hit me up if you have a question or comment, and hope you enjoyed. And maybe I'll make some more analyses as the season goes on, with maybe if I make any trades, why I do that, or how I think my team is faring compared to what I thought it would do. But yeah, let me know. And with that, I hope you guys have a fantabulous rest of your day, night, evening, wherever you are in the world, wherever you're watching, whenever you're watching, and I will catch you later. So, peace out.